Hello, this is Coach Wilson, and this is Colonial North America. This is our first day of notes in our section on Europeans in North America. So, what we're going to try to do is over the course of the next 2 days, we're going to try to talk about things that led to the development of the United States as a country. So, there's a lot of things we can get into, but we don't need to spend too much time because you're going to cover a lot of that when you get to American History 1. But for now, we're going to be talking about how Europeans came to be in North America. So one of the first things that we'll talk about is the Jamestown colony and the Lost Colony, or the Roanoke colony. Now, Roanoke Island was settled in 1585, and it was the first English settlement, but it did not survive. Now, one of the reasons that this settlement did not survive was they came over with a lot of items and goods that did not actually meet what they needed. First of all, they didn't have any families. It was pretty much soldiers, and they brought over things trying to look for resources rather than trying to set up an actual permanent settlement and making houses and homes and things of that nature. Now, eventually, in 1597, you're going to see the Lost Colony, as it comes to be known. You're going to see a second attempt to settle in Roanoke, and unfortunately, it's going to die as well. The problem with this one is the leader, John White, is going to leave in the middle of a war in Europe, and when he gets to Europe to get supplies, he gets stuck. He's not able to get back to Roanoke for 3 years. When he finally gets back to Roanoke, all of the people that he brought over in 1587 are gone. And so pretty much this has kind of been a mystery for the last forever in regards to American history, but now we actually know that Roanoke is assimilated with the Native Americans there, and they became a part of their culture. They actually found some new data about that, but anyways, that's here and there. And then one of the most common or well-known settlements is Jamestown, right there in the middle in Virginia, and that is the first permanent settlement in North America by the English. All right, so obviously we have some earlier settlements by the Spanish and other European groups, but the first English settlement where we can really trace our roots back to is in Jamestown. Now, as I mentioned, Jamestown is the first permanent settlement. That takes place in 1607. And then the second permanent settlement, or at least one of the most important ones that we're going to talk about, is where the Pilgrims landed in Massachusetts. Okay, they landed at Plymouth Rock. If you guys have ever heard of Jamestown and Plymouth, those are generally the two main locations that are talked about in American history in regards to settlement. Now, one of the most important parts about the Mayflower Compact, the Plymouth settlement, is the Mayflower Compact. And it was written in 1620 before they ever got off the boat. And what the Pilgrims agreed to was to be ruled by a government chosen by the people. And it was set by majority rule, okay, so that essentially one person or one specific group of people was not going to have more power than the whole population of their settlement. Now, the other important thing to note here is that the Pilgrims were Puritans, okay, and they sailed over looking for religious freedoms. And that's important because when we get to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, the Puritans are going to be one of those groups that are pushing for a lot of the Pilgrims, I should say, are one of those groups that are pushing a lot for religious freedom. The Puritans as a whole, though, when you get to the actual Puritans, they were pretty founded on you became a part of their government or a part of their church way of life, and if you want to be a part of their government, then you had to be a part of the church. You had to be a Puritan. The Pilgrims weren't that way, okay? The Pilgrims, they were looking for religious freedom and being able to practice their religion without any real influence on the government. Unfortunately, that's not going to last really long. You get into the 1630s and 40s and 50s, Massachusetts Bay Colony settles, and that's a lot of Puritans and a lot of other groups, and they pretty much make it just like it was in England, which is you had to be Puritan in order to be a part of their government. So, one of the first legislative bodies in the New World is the House of Burgesses. And in 1619, we see this form, and in order to be a part of the House of Burgesses, it was pretty much exclusive to landowners, and they were the ones that were making the decision. They were the most powerful of those in Virginia at that time. This is most notably important because it shows a representative government in the New World. And this is kind of the this town meeting slash um, group of representatives that represent the whole colony meeting. It's kind of the first stepping stone to our way of government. Now, one of the second most important, things we could talk about in regards to early American history, especially, is called the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut, and it is the first written constitution in 1639 for the colony of Connecticut. Now, it's important to note that all of these documents and things that are being established in the New World, when we get to the early 1700s, you're going to see King James, King George, all of these different kings are going to kind of feel a little bit some type of way towards the New World colonies because it's kind of like they're trying to set up their own government. The same as you're going to see these colonies are trying to set up their own governments because they feel like they need a voice, but then England, where they came from, isn't listening to them. And they have no voice back in England's government in what they call Parliament. Now, the last thing, the last thing that we're going to actually talk about today is some events that led to the revolution, but I want to go ahead and talk about this. We're going to talk about the Revolutionary War tomorrow, but one of the things that I want to talk about is the Navigation Acts. And the Navigation Acts required American goods to be exported in British ships. And this is kind of one of those stepping stones that I'm talking about of upsetting not only the colonists, but then the colonists getting more upset at Britain and Britain getting more upset at the colonists. Essentially what they wanted to do is require anything that was exported from the colonies, and you can see the colonies there, right here's Pennsylvania, New York, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, right now, so on. Okay, iron, lumber, cotton specifically, which we call raw materials. They wanted anything being shipped out of here to be put on the British ships, and they would be taxed as they came to the New World, or to the Old World, excuse me. Then anything that arrived, okay, Britain is basically making double taxes off of that because they're going to tax the items in England, plus they want to tax the items that were being exported and enforce it that it's exported on a British ship. Now, what's going to happen is smuggling. As you can imagine, people are going to begin trying to smuggle things into the Old World and back into the New World. But most products from the Old World could only be sold to England. All right, so if you wanted to sell sugar, tobacco, indigo, iron, cotton, lumber, things coming from the New World could only be sold to England. And the reason they did that is England's trying to kind of enforce its will on the colonies. Unfortunately, as we go on and you see further in, that's not going to work so well. All right, that's all I have for you today. We're going to stop right there. We'll pick up with Colonial North America tomorrow. Please make sure that you're keeping up with your bell ringers, keeping up with your notes and your vocabulary. And if you have any questions, please let me know. If not, I'll talk to you soon.